Hello everyone, that's right, we came in on a bank holiday. Ronan, hello.
There's no place I'd rather be, Joe.
I just said I'm coming in. I don't care, I'm coming in. I'll be there. Wild horses couldn't stop me coming in for this bank holiday Monday show. Yeah, because Liverpool-Arsenal was good yesterday and there was a few other things, but we just felt Monday was the day to talk to Johnny Doyle. Of course, we are not in on a bank holiday Monday. We should be upfront about that. We shouldn't lie. It's a real kernel of journalism. Look, we decide we would work to live and not live to work. So we were putting our feet up on a bank holiday Monday, if that's okay. That said, we thought, well, we can't just leave everybody hanging. So we are bringing you a very nice interview, which we recorded last week. So Johnny Doyle is going to join us and then we'll reconvene tomorrow as normal. Paul McGinley in tomorrow, by the way, coming into studio. So I don't know, will that go out Tuesday or maybe Wednesday, TBC? We have to figure out what happened in the Liverpool-Arsenal game yesterday. We'll make sense of the weekend tomorrow, but that's the general plan. We have Johnny Doyle today and then tomorrow, certainly Paul McGinley coming at you this week and the usual coverage of football and rugby and GAA and everything else going on. Johnny Doyle. So yesterday, it will have happened, I'm sure, barring disaster. St. Conleth's Park was unveiled. So Kildare football is moving again. Conleth's was, and I played in it, I can say it as a Kildare man, you know, it wasn't the greatest GAA stadium in the country. May not have been in the top 30. But we're back now and it's a beautiful sight to behold, Conleth's. And we thought, you know what, Johnny Doyle, we should talk to Johnny. One, because Kildare people don't get enough respect on this podcast. And secondly, because he retired last month. You may have seen this. Like, the thing with Johnny Doyle is all around GAA circles, everybody knows what a freak of nature, frankly, he has been. And up until last month, he was playing for Allenwood in the Kildare Senior Football Championship. Johnny Doyle has not been kind of messing around at 47 years of age in intermediate or junior. He's been playing Kildare Senior Football for Allenwood and he has decided at 47 to call it a day. There are some well-known stats, I think, about Johnny Doyle's durability. So they lost to a thigh. He called it a day. That was 29 years on. 29 years on from his debut for Allenwood. But the more extraordinary statistic is that he did not miss a single championship game for Allenwood from 1995 until 2022, when injury finally stopped him playing in a game. I suspect that record, and the problem with GAA is we'll never know, must be a record. I can't imagine anyone's done 1995 to 2022 every championship game for their club.
Oh, it's absolutely unbelievable. Everything he did more or less defied logic. You know, like he traversed so many different planes of football styles throughout his career, you know, like from orthodox 15-on-15 to blanket defences, and he was moving within that, different positions. And his athletic profile was quite unique as well in an era where the Armagh and Tyrone of the day were bulking up. He was remaining, you know, like a greyhound, you know, just zipping around the pitch. So just an amazing player. And in advance of this, I was looking at some clips and showing them to you, and that's what we do in our production meetings. And it's like a game from 2009, and the commentator's like, oh, the old dog for the hard road in 2009. And here we are, he's just retired last month.
Yeah.
And then there's this in like a failing effort, unfortunately, against Dublin in the Leinster final when he was captain, and he had this clash with Dennis Bastick, like a head collision, and he comes back on wearing number 31 because his original white jersey was destroyed, and he's all bandaged up like Terry Butcher, and he blisters past three men and kicks it over the bar. You're like, that should be an iconic memory, and he's down on his hands and knees with his fists clenched. And unfortunately, much like for much of Kieran McGeeney's reign with Kildare, it was a close run thing. They possibly should have had silverware to show for it, but
yeah, very possibly. His only, I guess, Kildare medal of note is the Leinster Championship in 2000 under Micko. So he played for Kildare from 2000 until 2014. And again, he did not miss a single championship game. Just didn't miss one.
Unbelievable, isn't it?
Now, before you make the gag, maybe there weren't all that many in certain years. All right. But 2000 to 2014 did not miss a single game for Kildare. And he was championship top scorer in 2008 and 2010. Johnny Doyle could strike a ball from play, from frees. Just an amazing, amazing player. And so we thought, if at 47 years of age he has finally called it a day, we should talk to him on this bank holiday Monday. So we chatted to Johnny last Thursday, recorded this conversation. He was in great form. And so without further ado, one of the greats. Man himself has joined us. Johnny Doyle, hello.
How are you, Joe? How are you?
You wouldn't have gone to 50, no?
I feel I'm 25 from the neck up, but the neck down tells me I'm nearly 70.
I doubt it. What are you, 47?
Be 47 in January. Yeah, 47.
It'd be nice to hit 50 though. I mean, how long, honestly, do you think before they twist your arm? Johnny, few bodies down, come on, give us 20 minutes.
Listen, I for senior football, it's different. Look at, will I go down and the fresh cooked smell of grass gets the nostrils and the juniors are playing and they say, come on, Johnny, 20 minutes. Sure, look, at stranger things have happened. But certainly the routine of Tuesday, Thursday, match a weekend is certainly, it's a game for the younger lads now in the club, and we've plenty of younger lads, so it's maybe no harm that the old contrary lad moves on.
And is the pace of it tough, or is it just the commitment off the pitch, or like, can you still hold your own in a nice 20-25 minute spell in a senior match?
Look, I still think I can hold my own at senior inter-county level, Joe. But yeah, look, at the pace is obviously different. You know, I was never blessed with blistering pace, so you sort of, as you get older, you learn to maybe find other ways. There's probably a couple of things, really. You know, do I still think I could contribute? Absolutely. Now, that's probably maybe my heart ruling my head, but you know, I would have played all the games this year with the club at senior level, and you know, held my own without standing out too much, but. There's a couple of things. It was always in my head when I started in Allenwood. We were senior and we were playing Division 1, and it was nice to be able to walk away. A lot of people would have said maybe after the Leinster campaign, winning Leinster last year was the time to go. But I just felt it would be nice, and you know, there was a risk in that. We went to the whole of Division 2 unbeaten this year, which was great, and they said the club is back where I started, and that was probably a nice way to step away. And even though when I say step away, you know, you're heavily involved in the club. My kids play in the club. You know, I'm involved in a football committee. You know, you're never too far away from it. I'm managing the under-23s for the next few weeks as well. Right. So, look, you'll always be immersed in the club, but it's just your role will change a little bit. Yeah, for sure. Listen, only Johnny Doyle could be kind of getting the third degree here from somebody about why they retired at 47. Like, it's no explanation needed, you know. So, Niall Carew's a bit of a character, is he? No, he's a good character. Okay. Absolutely, yeah. He's a good character. He's talking to Michael Verney about you last month when you stepped away after that defeat to a tie and said some things about you. Okay. Are you going to have to edit this? Just trying to see how much panic was on your face there. Yeah. So yeah, he said, go either way now, Joe. Go either way. He said lovely things. So he said, Johnny is an icon in Gaelic football around the country. But off the pitch, what you see is what you get with Johnny. Sometimes when there's an established legend of a footballer, there's always something that someone would say, he's a bit of a bollocks. You couldn't say that with Johnny. Well, I definitely disagree. I'm sure there's plenty around Kildare and beyond that would have, and I called it back to them in certain times in matches. Look, I suppose it's nice to hear, and obviously, you know, Niall was involved with Kildare under Kieran. We would have played at the same hurling club, albeit he was a few years old. A little bit of hurling I played, and he would have been one side of the club in St. Kevin's, and I'm the other side in Allenwood. So I would have known, God be good to Niall's dad and my own dad were around the same age and would have played together with the over 40s. And obviously Niall's uncle is the legendary Tommy Carew, who would need very little introduction countrywide. So I got to know Niall very well, and we you know. We would have got on well. Niall would have been, you know, working with the forwards a lot. And I suppose when Niall came in, I was 30 years of age. I wasn't a young lad as such, and I would have felt, you know, there was an onus on your responsibility to try sell their message and what the management was trying to do, and you work closely with them, and you know, you always like to think you would be coachable, and regardless of what your role was, and you were part of a team, and. I suppose when you come from, I suppose, rural part of Kildare and the club that I came from and the people that I hung around with, there's no room to get ahead of yourself, because you will be dragged straight back down to the ground very, very quick by the people that mean the most to you, and that was always something that was very much in my mind. And you know, at the end of the day, Joe, you played a game, you played it to the best of your ability, you were passionate about it. And that's what I was, and I'd like to think, you know, I had more good days and bad days. I certainly had more bad days than good days, but I just love playing the game, and you know, I want to be part of that team, and that meant a good bit to me. I never thought it was anything but
part of a team, and that's, I think it stood to me in good stead, you know.
So that McGeeney period, and listen, the boys done good. I should get your thoughts on McGeeney this year, because it was amazing to watch Armagh do what they did. But that McGeeney period in Kildare, in the county, I mean, it was just a magical kind of time. It was so exciting. There was such a sense of purpose about the team, and the county didn't need asking twice to get on board. You, and part of your longevity is probably that you don't carry much weight, and you have that kind of wiry frame, almost that long distance runner frame. Did McGeeney come in and take a look at you and say, Johnny, we need to do something here, we need to get these biceps pumping, or was he happy enough to let you be?
Yeah, it's funny because Kieran would have been, you know, or certainly people would have felt that Kieran was all about building big, strong, you know, muscle men, and it was something I was very, very aware of long before Kieran McGeeney came to town. I would have had, you know, I would have done all the creatine and stuff, and I would have got a lot stronger, Joe, down the years in regards to, you know, how my body I was wiry, certainly. But I do remember going to him and saying, listen, you know, I need to bulk up here, and I need to get, you know, maybe not so much stronger, because I would have felt that I had a certain type of strength in how I did things, but certainly I would have felt that I needed to bulk up and maybe put on a bit of beef or whatever. But he would have said the opposite. He said, listen, you're after surviving here for long before I came around the place. If your body's happy, yes, we're going to push the strength a little bit, but you know, and I remember clearly said, you're injury free, you know, you can stay on the field. A lot of the strength and conditioning I want is to keep lads on the field, and if you can stay on the field performing where I'm happy, that's fine. So we won't get too hung up about it, which was at the time was a bit of a shock to me. And I suppose once I knew he was happy in that headspace, I was sort of happy. And I just, don't get me wrong, people would say, oh, you know, you never did the weights. I did all the weights, and I did all the strongman sessions, and I pushed all the sleds, and you know, did all the rope sessions and everything like that. But again, it was just my frame, my whatever's in the DNA. I just didn't put on that big, you know, frame. And some lads would have really benefit from it in regards to the, you know, the shape of their body. I didn't in lots of ways, but look at, I found a way. I didn't have to, you know.
Oh, you sure did. But I think your body is the prototype, really. Increasingly, we see it in soccer. We'll see it more and more in GAA. We'll see it, I mean, not quite rugby, but in rugby, they're more lean than they might have been 15 years ago when it was pasta and more pasta and pasta. Like, you were strong, but you were just wiry. You had long levers, and you just, is it an ectomorph, endomorph, one of those kind of words? You're obviously very much one of the better one. I'm the other one. But I mean, there was a strength to you. Like, I never looked in the pitch and thought, God, he's been blown away by a gust of wind here either. It was more like a core leanness.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, maybe there was a little bit of. I suppose when you were younger, I was always very conscious of it. I would have did a little bit of boxing when I was younger in Irish ropes in Newbridge, and you know, you were always on the weight, the lower weight, even though you would have been maybe a little bit taller for at that stage, but you were always the other end, and I was very conscious of it when I was younger. But I always felt that, you know, there was other ways rather than worrying what I didn't have. I sort of concentrated maybe something that I did have that others didn't have, and that was my ability maybe to keep going. And you know, you would have pride yourself. Look, there's lots of times I got bad belts, or I got, you know. But maybe it was my way of coping, or my way of saying, listen, you'll have to come with more than that to set me back. I just, maybe an ignorant streak, if you want to, or a thickness in me. I don't know what you'd like to call it, but I used to be able to hold my own in lots of ways. Don't get me wrong, if it came to a toe-to-toe, I would have lost to most lads. But on the field, I was able to manage, you know, and I always focused on the things maybe that I had that other lads hadn't, and maybe tried to make hay in that regard. Yeah.
So it's amazing to think now you got McGeeney at the start of his All-Ireland winning managerial journey. I don't think it's a surprise to any of you that he's gone on to do great things. Your sense of that kind of raw young manager making his way then in hindsight?
Yeah, I suppose, look, it was, there's probably an element of risk to take someone straight off the playing field as he did. You know, he played up to, I think, 2007, and he arrived with us in 2008. Sil Mearns was chairman and of the county board at the time, and Pat Mangan, who was the chairman of the supporters club, would have saw something in Kieran, would have I think, travelled north to meet him a few times and met him in Dublin. And so there probably was a bit of risk from their point of view on Kieran coming. Obviously, he had legendary status as a player, and that persona of he was like an on-field manager for Joe Kieran and previous Armagh managers. But certainly, even before he arrived in the county, there was a little bit of a buzz.
Yeah.
And I remember meeting him at the first county final, and you just felt that he meant business, and he was so invested in Kildare from day one. I think that's what really people appreciated as well. And look at it, he didn't have to win an All-Ireland for me to know he was a brilliant manager. We judge, or the outside world certainly judge people on silverware, where it would be, like, to me, that's so far away from how we should judge people and how we should judge the job they're doing. But that's the way it works. So, like, the world is telling us how great Kieran is. I knew after a couple of months with Kildare, we have someone that's a special person that wanted Kildare to be successful and would give every ounce that he had, and he expected the same of you. Some people weren't able to do that, and they just moved on, and it took time. And unfortunately, we didn't. He won very little silverware with us, but he built something that to this day is still very strong with a certain group of us that are very, very tight. We came close, we competed. We don't have any medals, but I don't think, and I would argue with most people, that shouldn't be the stick to beat the group of players at that time, and also the management led by Kieran.
It's funny when you talk about him straight out of playing 07 into 08. I don't remember even in 08 looking at him and feeling like this guy's a rookie, or he's young, or he's uncertain of himself. Like, he was, even in his first year managerial, year being a manager, he felt almost like an authority in the game and felt like a big time manager from minute one. He just had it.
Yeah, he does. He certainly does. When Kieran walks into a room, he has that persona, and obviously the outside world don't see that he's really great crack. And we've probably seen a little bit more after they won the All-Ireland, a little bit more into the Kieran that we would have known. Always up for a bit of crack when the crack we were to have it. Like, was very, very much about the team, and we socialise together, we win together, we lose together, we stay together, and that was really important. And it's hard to get that, but he create a bond very quick with it. We work hard, and it's when we have to go for a few beers, we go together and things like that. And Kieran is good fun, and he is good crack. Obviously under a lot of pressure over the last few years in Armagh, and as I say, some of the things that have been said about him would just, it would annoy you. But look, that's the world we live in as well. But he's a really good guy, and to this day would be very much what's the word I'm looking for? Very loyal to Kildare and the people that he would have dealt with within Kildare. I know a friend of mine and a club mate of mine passed away recently, and would have been a big supporter of Kildare football in general, but regardless of the manager. And as I say, he passed away, and Kieran got off the plane the night before, dropped the kids off from holidays and headed down to Kildare to make sure he was at the funeral. And the whole place in Allenwood was talking about, my God, this is something special, But he never forgot. People were good to him, and people that supported him, and that bond would be still strong with certain people,
Well, that speaks volumes, doesn't it? Andrew McLaughlin, I was speaking to him a couple of months ago, on the record, by the way, so it's all public, but he was saying that one of the things about McGeeney was that he took a huge interest in players' lives off the pitch, and that he would map out a plan on the pitch where you're trying to get to with your S&C and with your game, and that was all important, obviously. But then he would say, and off the pitch, what diploma are you going for, what degree are you going for, where you want to be professionally in 10 years. Even if, like, that player in 10 years professionally, it doesn't really matter to Kieran McGeeney where he is. He took a big interest in that, set targets for a lot of players, and quite a few of them, I think in hindsight, very, very grateful for that. So again, that ties in with your point.
Yeah, absolutely. And but that's the type Kieran was. I suppose he was, his background in sport, and there's loads of different stories where in different sports where great coaches, great managers, they coach the person before they coach the sport, and they got the benefits on the other side of that. And there's loads of those examples, and Kieran certainly would have done that. Certain little things that other players might never know of. maybe someone struggling in some area of their life, he was always there,
right.
You know, no matter what it was, what the issue was, you know, and had a genuine interest in you. You know, I remember the time when we went up to Kildare GAA when they unveiled the statue of Dermot Senior, and myself and my wife went up for the weekend. Obviously, I'd be very close to Dermot, and my ma and dad came up because they would have known Dermot throughout the years, and went up and they were coming back, and they stopped off maybe in Athlone to get a bit of dinner, and they were sitting there, and who walked in on the Kieran. He was coming away from Roscommon, and ma and dad chatted him for a few minutes, and Kieran went on, and when they went up to pay for the dinner, that would have man paid for that. You know, little things like that, small little things, but you know, that meant a lot.
Small things aren't small, Johnny.
Absolutely, and it was more. I found that was more. I took a huge thing that he thought that much of my parents. You know, like, and that was Kieran, and that's just one example. You know.
Yeah. Lovely. Well, look, he's having a hell of a summer, or had a hell of a summer, so well deserved, I'm sure. By the way, Niall Carew, you talked there about socialising. Niall Carew is basically my research tool for this entire interview. You should know that here.
I think you should go elsewhere for your bit of research. You know?
So you talked about socialising and McGeeney and that being important. He said of you as well, Johnny got the balance right in terms of family, spending time with them, didn't miss out on much in terms as well. If we were all going for a few pints, he'd be first there, and good crack. You can't stop Johnny from singing any one of 25 different Christy Moore songs on a night out. What's your Christy Moore go-to?
Oh, Johnny. Look at it. When we were out obviously if the company's good, I like to sing a few. Some lads like to fight, Joe, and some lads like to fall asleep. I like to sing, so it could be. I don't think anyone else likes me singing, but anyway, there's actually a great story. We were in the after one of the games, we went back to the Osprey Hotel in Naas, and there was a few of us there, but towards the end of the night, Oxygen had been on out in Punchestown, so there was a few.
Yeah, we're going back a few years now. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, going back and. There was a group of lads over in the corner, and of course I was full blow of Listowne Barn or something like that, and the guys in the corner start talking, and Brian Flanagan, who's the new man, pipes up and he says, "Lads, will you give it a rest there? Johnny's singing." Now little did I know it was the Stereophonics that were in the corner. So that's my claim to fame. I
dear. And did Kelly Jones say, "My God, what a voice"?
Funny enough, he didn't. But I'm not surprised at that.
Beautiful photo popped up a couple of years ago of you. Dermot was right next to you, and I'd say 5, 6, 7 others, and Mick O'Dwyer. You'd all gone down to visit him.
Yeah.
Kind of lovely. Was that a nice visit? Was he talking about the Kildare years? Was it what you kind of hoped it would be? Obviously, Micko's getting on in years now. I don't know how his health is generally, but such an icon in Kildare.
Absolutely, yeah. And we talked about that for a couple of years before. And obviously, there was a big weekend at the time of his 80th birthday, and we went down, and there was a rest of Ireland versus Kerry, and we reminisced and we talked about football. We talked about things that never happened and all that goes with it. But we were conscious, obviously, that there was a few of us wanted to go down, and you know his health hadn't been good, and we didn't want it to be a case of the next time we travel was maybe for a funeral or whatever the case may be. So we went down and we had a brilliant couple of hours with him. Obviously, you know, he's at a good age. He's not as mobile as he once was, but his brain was as sharp as ever. He talked about matches that I played in and I couldn't remember. He was so sharp, and he was as delighted to see us. And all he wanted to do was talk about Kildare and the good times, and you know how things were going, and you know maybe the ups and downs we had was to keep going. All very positive, and it was a lovely experience for us. I you know. When I think back at the Micko era, Joe, I look at it as if I was a supporter. I was only there for a couple of years with him. The vast majority of the time that Micko was in Kildare, as a young lad, I felt the biggest Kildare supporter. I went to every match. I used to go in and look at them train. So to go down and see him and chat, it was brilliant. And look at nobody owes more to football to my career than Mick O'Dwyer gave me the start when. You know, even my dad was wondering where is he going with you, you know, so, and he'd be my most loyal supporter. So, I owe him a lot, and to go down and chat him and have those memories. It was really a special day.
Yeah, it was such fun. I mean, look, in '98 I would have been 13, I suppose, and the place was just hopping. I mean, it was outrageous. It was just so good.
It was unbelievable. I mean, we used to go up to Dublin maybe the night before the Leinster final, and to be anywhere you could get a bit of accommodation, and we do it was magical. But and I know it's the same in every county, but we in this county went absolutely ballistic.
Yeah, bananas. No, I think we did. Yeah.
I know we're in the habit. I saw a man in our parish that went up onto his roof with a bucket of white paint and painted Kildare Simply the Best all over his roof. That could be seen for 15 years later, destroyed the roof. But and nobody batted an eyelid. There was bed sheets made into flags. The place just went ballistic, and it was brilliant. And Joe, would have been any better if we'd won the All-Ireland? Okay, at the time, of course, maybe it would have. But the journey was special.
The build-up's the best part. Are you being falsely modest or being serious when you say even your dad didn't know if you had county football in you when Micko picked you?
Look at it. There was no sign there. There was no no real underage. I was like. You talked earlier about when Kieran came. Kieran just would have looked at me and shook his head. And at that stage, I was probably around 12 and a half stone. When I came onto the Kildare setup, I was barely touching 10. He used to look at me and say, how could you be 2.5 stone lighter? And so I was really, as I say, didn't play minor, knocked around, got a couple of games at 21, and then sort of things kicked off. But there was, and even myself, had I ambition, and did I think, my day would come? Not really, to be honest with you. It was more, I wanted to play with the club, and I was and even when I did get called in, I would have said, I'm going to give this my very best. And there was another guy in Allenwood that would have played for Kildare for years, a guy called Joe Doyle. And Joe would have said to me at the time, and Joe was one of the greatest clubmen and a great county player, and would have played for Leinster back in Railway Cup times. And Joe said to me, only one bit of advice for you going in there. He said, go in to play. In other words, go in and give it your very, very best. And I would have been conscious, even, when I look back, I would have come from National League matches and come back and played matches for the club, because I didn't want to be seen as the county lad, getting above a station and things like that. So it took me a while to get into the whole mindset. Well, look, I am a county player. I have to be a little bit selfish here, and so there was no at that stage. Maybe 98, 97. There was no. I didn't think I was ever going to play for Kildare, and that was okay with me. I didn't. My ambitions were just to play with Allenwood and be the best we could be.
Wow, that's interesting. You were top championship scorer in 08, in 2010, All-Star in 10. In so many games, whether Kildare won or lost, you kicked outrageous points from play and from dead ball as well, under huge pressure, both psychological if it was a free, and then sometimes, often being double marked because you were Kildare's most kind of potent threat. So when it came to your abilities to strike a football, I never had a sense, Johnny, to what extent you were methodical and obsessive, and like the rugby players, the kickers talk about developing a routine, and I take 3 breaths before I kick it, and I take this exact step, and I practice every day, night, noon and morning. I see, this is the wrong thing to say to someone who's talented, because they do work hard. I sort of felt you were more in I'm a bit more natural than that kind of a way. So what was your method?
Well, it probably changed at certain stages. Particularly as I got older, I probably would have worked the routine a little bit more. I suppose that, they talk about muscle memory, and they talk about, the 10,000 hours and stuff like that. I would have done an awful lot of kicking when I was younger, for lots of reasons. I was kicking balls from behind the goals in Allenwood for years, and never thought that maybe I'm perfecting a kick. When the lads were down training, I'd be shaping up around frees and see, could I, from the 14, could I get it over the bar with the O'Neill's big ball and stuff like that. And all that goes into the bank. And
it's funny, I just read Joe Canning's book, and it would chime there. Portumna, he's behind the goals, poking it back out to the lads.
Yeah, and that was the environment you were raised in, and lots of times you look back, and without sort of I don't want to give a whole, we were eating potatoes morning, noon and night around that sort of thing. But, we grew up in the 80s, and, RT1 and RT2 were on the telly. So you had nothing else really. You go down to the field, and if there was someone down there, well and good. And if not, then you got to 40, maybe 50, and you were hoping they were playing maybe backs and forwards, and you could get to kick the ball in. And, that was the environment you were raised in. And I suppose I was around 10 or 11 when I really started to get into Gaelic football and start looking at it. And that time, provincial finals weren't even on the telly. It was All-Ireland semi-finals and finals. And the two big teams at the four at that time were Cork and Meath. Like, you never saw Kildare on the telly because they just weren't, And I remember recording the All-Ireland in 88 with Cork and Meath. And obviously that Larry Tompkins was the one of the top players. He was free taker. He wore the red number 11. Our school jerseys were red. I was an impressionable 10-year-old, and I was playing midfield for the school, a very small school, and all I wanted to do was get the 11 red jersey on me, and I was shaping up, and I was Larry Tompkins, and I was kicking frees off the ground. And at the time, you never thought anything of it, but I suppose that was your apprenticeship, for want of a better word. Yeah. And that's how I started. And as I say, I'm rambling a bit maybe on the original question, but
no.
As I got on, yes, I did. Try to get more routine around it and stuff like that. But I always felt that, look at, the top players missed, and it was okay to miss. I was, if I missed a free, I was confident enough that I had the work done that I could step up again. And I've had bad days, and there is days you just have to say, listen, maybe someone else take it. I've had those days, but I always felt that I had the work done, that I took the responsibility of, that if it was, you had to step up. It was easy to step up when you were, 9 points up. But what if you're one down? What if it's that's when leadership is needed, when your backs were to the wall. And I was happy with that. I was fine with that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that came across, actually. You always did stand up in those moments, and it's not fun in some ways. So you were in with Glenn Ryan as part of his backroom team this year. Didn't look like fun from afar for various reasons. On the pitch, it was a struggle. There were injuries. It gets a bit ugly when the county board chairman, Mick O'Dwyer, is quoted as saying, well, listen, things have to get a bit better. And then Glenn Ryan has the moment with a journalist, which, like, in some respects is just like a nothing thing, but obviously it blows up in a big way, and it just adds to the kind of atmosphere. And it's like relegation, and then it's like to Division 3 for Kildare. It's like, Jesus. And then lose to Laois in Tailteann Cup, don't make Sam Maguire. So just looked tough, miserable. And obviously there were such hopes for the ticket, kind of legendary figures in Kildare football. How do you reflect on it now, Johnny?
Well, the first thing I'd say, Joe, is it was tough. It was very tough. It was tough on everybody involved. Obviously management, because the book stops with management, and you're very conscious of that. It was tough on players. It was tough on county board. It was tough on supporters. And you're not. To me, it was never. We were all the one, and everyone has a role to play, including supporters. Because their influence off the field is huge. But it certainly was a tough time. And look, we could talk about it all day. It was. I suppose when Glenn asked me to get involved first, obviously, to me, Glenn was the greatest Kildare footballer I was lucky enough to see and to play with. And I said, listen, Glenn, if I can help, I'm in. And obviously with Dermot and Anthony, and I worried at the time when, there was, as you mentioned, the ticket was coming, like, we can do so much and we can facilitate, but we were never going to win the game for it.
No, you're not coming back. You're not coming back as players.
Absolutely, as much as you would like to. But so I was very conscious of that as well, and it would have been addressed very early with the players that this was their time. It's time for we talked about 98. We talked about the Kieran McGeeney era. It was time for these group. In time that people wanted to talk about their era, and it wasn't because of certain past players. It was because the players and we had some good times in that. I'll never forget the first day we went to Newbridge, the first league match against Kerry. A fairly packed Kerry team. Should have won it, didn't win it. Got a draw with the place was absolutely rocking.
Yeah.
Dublin coming to town, albeit it wasn't a star-studded Dublin team, but did enough there to would have troubled a lot of teams. Get the result, and so unlucky that year to I think Dublin needed to draw against Monaghan. Game was almost up. Dublin draw, we stay in Division 1. Next year's build on that. Didn't happen, dropped to Division 2. Okay, then you go into the championship in our second year, push Monaghan to the very limit. They go on, beat Armagh, the same Armagh team that won in All-Ireland. How close are we? Let's build on that. And then for loads of different reasons, obviously injuries, but when I look at that team that finished that day against Monaghan to the team that finished against Laois after being knocked out of the Tailteann Cup, there was 8 different players, for whatever reason, were not on that field.
Right.
And you're talking about the Jimmy Hylands, Ben McCormicks, Neil Flynn, Jack Robinson. There's 4 forwards that would start our team. Now, if you took Rian O'Neill, Oisin Connaughty, them top 4 forwards out of Armagh, would they be All-Ireland champions? Probably not. So, and that's not washing our hand. We made mistakes, absolutely. But just things just didn't work out, and then confidence went a bit and the pressure came on. And look at, that thing around Mick Gorman. I spoke to Mick at the time, and Mick was saying, Janie, look, I didn't mean that. But I said, listen, Mick, you're right, you're county board chairman, you're not happy. Well, I'm not happy, supporters are not happy, but it's up to us to pull ourselves out of this. And look at, it doesn't, a lot of people you meet now, Joe, would say to you, I'd say you're glad to be gone over. And look at, absolutely there was pressure there, but it's still, there's an itch there to say, look, we sold ourselves, not management, as a team, a collective, because we're all Kildare supporters. I'm a Kildare supporter that was lucky enough, and I've said it lots of times, and I'll always say it, I'm a Kildare supporter, first and foremost. I was lucky enough to be asked to play, I was lucky enough to be involved, and now I'm a Kildare supporter again. And that's where I'll always be. So, it is disappointment. It is disappointing that we're in Division 3. It's going to take a lot of work, and Brian is a really top class guy, very organised. But it's going to take, and maybe we mightn't get out of it this year. Maybe we won't. There's an expectation we will come straight out of it. But it's very easy to have expectations. And we will want, of course, we want to be back at that. But very little, and that things could turn. And if we get a bit of momentum, and there's lots of good things, having Connacht's open again is a huge plus. To have a home that we're proud of, that'll bring a sense of togetherness that was probably missing. We lost out on that in the last year. Again, these can sound like excuses, but
things add up. Things do add up, and it was strange the way, actually, the way in the national media, and by the way, sorry, very much me part of it, and we covered it in Off the Ball, but like in the league, you're looking for kind of stories or angles, because there are too many games to cover in a weekend, and for whatever reason, Kildare in crisis became the story early in national media as well, and all of these things started to kind of build. It's a good point about Conlitz. I mean, I played there a few times in county finals down the years, and look, we can say it because it was our kip, but like it was a bit of a kip. And now to have a stadium that Kildare can be really, really proud of, like a modern stadium, hosting obviously the county final now the weekend. It won't take much if Brian Flanagan gets things going and the stadium's good, and it's always just waiting to light up again Kildare football. It's obviously getting the momentum at the start is the tricky part.
Yeah, it is, and absolutely. But there has to be a feel good factor around everything we get involved in. You go down to play. If I go down to Allenwood and the grass is not cut, and we've only 2 or 3 balls, and the jersey or the bibs are all dirty and smelly. Do I want to be involved? We can make things better for ourselves, and we have to attract people to our games now. And when I grew up, and you mentioned it, Joe, you played in Connacht's Park. To play in the county grounds as a young lad was what you wanted to do. You play. Oh God, we played our school's final in Connacht's Park, and as I say, that's what we want to get back to. We have a stadium now. I was in there yesterday. It's just like the surface, the lights. You can imagine a Saturday night, maybe 8,000 to 10,000 people in there playing a National League game. going for a couple of pints across the road after. It's like, it's just
the big buzz, the atmosphere. Yeah.
Exactly. We want to bring our kids to that, and they're the next generation that buy into that as well. So, it's not before our time. And look, there's lots of other areas that we can improve in Kildare, but certainly there's an appetite there with supporters, with Kildare people, and a lot of people that have moved into the county, from different counties that are GAA people, and their kids are playing for Kildare now that want Kildare to do well. So there's a huge appetite, and as I said, Brian and his management team are going to come in there, and it is going to take a little bit of time. But I think the big thing is for players that are, this mightn't happen this year for me. It might even take a third year for me to get the work done to get up to that level. But it's to stay with it, and we have to try be more successful and be the best version of ourselves as we can be. And if we do that, I think before long we'll be back competing in Leinster finals and beyond, and that's where we all want to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Last question. You're well placed to answer this. You came on the scene, obviously, 2000, I suppose, with Kildare, and you watched the game change so dramatically, and being a corner forward was less fun, and now you're in management. What way are you voting at Congress?
What way am I voting at Congress? Look, there's a lot of the rules coming in. I think it's a lot all at once. I like the certain parts of them. I think others are drastic. I think certain ones are great in Croke Park when you have the fourth official and we have the television cameras and everything. But when playing a junior match on a Monday evening in Allenwood, what does the arc look like?
Yeah.
We've got to try help referees as well. It's a tough gig, and when you're there, maybe having a row with a club official at the start of the match, to say, listen, surely you have one umpire or one linesman to give him a hand. So we have to be conscious of that too. I like the three up. I think there's certain other ones. I know when you hear Jim or you hear Eamon Fitzmaurice explaining why they came up with the rules, it's hard to argue with them. They didn't come up with them for no reason, and I wouldn't be critical of it, but I would think I still don't agree with it.
Right, okay.
Little things like maybe asking the ref, what did they do that for, ref, or what was that free for, ref? Like we're human, and next thing it's
50
brought
meters,
in 14-yard free, or you didn't hand the ball back on the full, and you're thinking, look at it, has that's what our game has become? So look at it. It'll be interesting to see will they all get through Congress. I certainly think there's some really good ones there that I'd like to see kept, but I wouldn't be in favour of them all, because I think it's too hard to govern them,
Okay, so 3v3 you might take, and the point scoring, 2 for a point, 4 for a goal?
Yeah, I'm not sold on it yet, Joe.
Right.
Again, I'm thinking of, a referee, was he inside the arc, was he outside? Again, lovely in Leinster final,
yeah,
okay. Plays, but I can't see how it's going to help in tight games when referees are there on their own. I just think it's a bit too much.
Okay, interesting. Well, it's going Congress fast around the corner, so we'll see. Before you go, by the way, so this is just a random happy coincidence, but more than happy to give your new app a mention. We just said it's a bank holiday Monday, and you'd retired obviously last month, so we said we'd talk to you. But I saw that you and Sean O'Brien, of all people, Leinster's Sean O'Brien, have launched a sports app together, and it's called Clinched, if people want to check it out. In effect, it's, I guess, aimed in the GAA world, and it's going to connect clubs with potential managers and coaches and bring them together. And if it's a service they avail of, then there's a fee, but it's free to use initially. And you're hoping to be a millionaire by the end of the year? Is that the crack?
Well, look, I see Mark Stuckenberg a few missed calls off from there. So. No, look, it's a concept that we came up with. Look, I've sat in at meetings in Allenwood saying, look, we get the next manager, and you go through your own connections and contacts, and you ring Joe Molloy and have a chat about how things are going in Celbridge, and an hour later I say, anyway, Joe, the reason I'm ringing you is, yes, and you suggest I've no interest in your thing.
My fee's too high.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're trying to take that. That was the thinking behind it. Must be an easier way to put, clubs in with coaches, and so it's a platform to do that. Obviously, it's GAA and rugby set up. The plan is, please God, albeit we're not expecting it to be millionaires overnight around, but we think it has potential to grow, to add other features. Sean O'Brien has got involved from a rugby point of view, and two, as you mentioned, two big burly lads together. It helps. But Sean's a real. He's a GAA man as well. He understands the flavour of the community and all the things that we struggle with in our club. He can with his own club, both Tullow Rugby and with the Fighting Cocks. He knows exactly what's about as well.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, listen, it's a very innovative idea. So best of luck with it. Thank you so much for your time. As always, a pleasure. And I mean, genuinely, I hope you get some champagne or you have a toast of some kind, because what you've done between county and club is actually outrageous. I mean, it's just one of the great GAA careers. So, Johnny Doyle, enjoy retirement until you're back playing 20 minutes for junior next year, okay?
Joe, a gentleman, thank you so much.